Greetings, Patrick here, 8 Questions With, and it's a beautiful Wednesday here in southeastern Michigan. It's bright and sunny outside, and that'll be good because I wonder if that's going to be like that over in Troy. Well, we'll soon find out. Um, we are going to be talking with Brian Katz and Thomas Zambeck. They are the gentlemen behind Umbrelic Entertainment and also the Revival Anchor Bay Entertainment as well. These two gentlemen have over 35 years in the film business. Um, Thomas himself has led over 1,500 projects to fruition. Brian Katz is also a master in sales, technology, and yet he even finds time to do other things as well, which we'll be talking about. Good things, good things. Hey, Anthony, how are you? Glad you're here. So yeah, this is a corker of a show for us. Um, this is definitely the biggest distributor label that we've chatted with. Of course, those who've come to the show know that we've talked to Peter Castro from Bayview Entertainment, and we also talked to Ray Murray from Cinephobia. But Thomas and Brian are this is pretty big, and this is going to be a really interesting interview about the future of physical media, um, because well, it seems like most people are retreating from physical media. Brian and Thomas are going the other way, and that gives everybody who collects physical media, collects movies and whatnot, TV shows and stuff like that, like myself, it gives us a lot of hope. We really have a we really hope that hopefully with the revival at Anchor Bay and reestablishing the physical media arm of it, um, that it will be a sign of the future. To hopefully make inroads into making physical media not only available again, but available and affordable. Affordable. A lot of times, a lot of the boutique labels that a lot of people are going to now, they find out that those prices are really, really high. And I think that with from what I've looked at with Thomas and Brian, I think they're going to also go a little different route that way as well, and that's going to be a refreshing to talk about as well. Of course, some of you may not know about Anchor Bay, but it was a label that was founded in 1995. It went ahead and started distributing films. 1997. It was bought by IDT Entertainment, or also well known as Stars, in the early 2000s. When they first started distributing, they distributed horror classics, and also movies from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Once they were bought by IDT, they started branching out and they started getting into television series and whatnot. Um, and you can buy any of their products on the shelves. Um, I got, I'll show this here. I showed this earlier, but I'll show it here now. Um, you can actually buy Anchor Bay. Uh, you can buy Anchor Bay at any major brick and mortar store. You walk in there, you can buy this right there sitting on the shelves. And I got my copy of Hercules here. I got this. Uh, I got this over where I worked at. I used to work at a supermarket, and I got it from over there. Which is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hopefully, like I said before, hopefully maybe there's light at the end of the tunnel. Um, it's a little rough right now. Earlier today, Charles Cochran came in and he commented that Redbox was really struggling, and I read that. I went and looked at that, and whew, not a good place to be right now for them. Really, really tough place to be. Um, can they hang on? Can they hang on just a little bit longer, or is it just completely too late to recover the way the physical media is marketed and shown? Um, I don't know. I'm hoping that these two gentlemen will share some light on that. We'll see how they got together, We'll talk about Umbrelic Entertainment. Uh, we'll talk about Outpost X, which is another company that they do, and a very important company too. Hey, Jaden, how are you? How are you? So yeah, there's a lot to talk about today, and we don't have a lot of time to do it. These two gentlemen are very, very busy, and definitely appreciative of them for taking the time to come here and to talk to us. I am leaving all their links, all their media in the description box below. So they do have a, Instagram page. They do have an Instagram page, which I should be floating out here right now. I can do that. They have an Instagram page. I highly recommend you join. Um, uh, and they also do giveaways, which is really cool as well. Um, and some of that stuff comes from what I read. Some of those giveaways are coming from their own personal stash. Um, as They used to work for the Anchor Bay when it was owned by Lionsgate, so they have some stuff that they kept from their own personal collection, and they have been doing. Okay. I don't know what it is with StreamYard today, but they have been having some problems. This happened to me earlier today. It was just stuck. I got frozen and then I got stuck. So hopefully, hey, hey, Mike, how are you? How are you? Yeah, StreamYard being StreamYard, right? I mean, if StreamYard doesn't bobble up, it doesn't fumble once a week, it's a bad week. You have to expect that StreamYard is going to drop the ball once in a while. So, um, yeah, thank you for coming on in. Thomas and Brian will be here shortly. Yeah, this is if this is the first time you've been to my channel, please consider giving us a sub and bring your questions. If you have questions about physical media, questions about Anchor Bay Entertainment, Umbrelic, feel free to start dropping them in the chat. We're really grateful that Thomas and Brian are going to be showing up here. As you can tell, as you know, trying to get up, it's not easy getting a company up and running after, especially after a nearly a 7 year hiatus. It's You got to reestablish the brand and get it out there, and it's slow moving. It can be a slow moving thing. It's not just hey, we turn the lights back on and everything's going to be all golden. Anchor Bay has not been an active label for 7 years, so we'll talk to them about their how they're going to be marketing. I do know that they have two new movies coming out. They already got movies lined up in the pipeline, and I have some other questions for them too about that. And hopefully they'll be able to answer them for us. All right. If you Like I said, if you're new to the channel, um, I'm Patrick, and I do an interview series called Eight Questions With, and I interview people from all over the world about all sorts of topics, mostly movies and entertainment, some pop culture, musicians, authors, writers, poets, you name it. If they want to talk to us, we'll talk to them. And we do this three nights a week, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from about 8 o'clock to about 9:30 ish. And You never know who's going to show up. And When is the relaunch and what titles do they have their eyes on? Good questions, good questions, and we definitely got that. We definitely got that in the pipeline for sure. Uh, What about you, Mac? Do you have hey, Corey, how are you? Glad you're here. Really glad you're here. Um, we're talking about Brian and Thomas will be here shortly. And Mac, what Anchor Bay what do you have with theirs? Do you own any media from them from the old days? Any TV shows or movies? I do know that a lot of collectors actively look for Anchor Bay. They actively look for it and they collect it. I myself, I'm always looking. If I can find it, I'll get it. Um, yeah, I realized I probably have more Anchor Bay than I realized when I was doing my little pre-show stream earlier today, and I realized I'm sitting here and realized that I own Black Sails, and any series that came out on Stars, any of the Stars series that came out before 2017 was most likely Anchor Bay. So any of those shows, if you went out and got any of those shows that aired on Stars Entertainment, if you weren't a real, if you didn't realize that, if you go look at them, you'll see that they were put out by Anchor Bay, like Black Sail. I also had Camelot, which I just recently picked up, and this also was Anchor Bay. So anything that has Stars related, yeah, it's out there. Now the older stuff before Lionsgate bought them out, that's still out there. That's harder to find, and you can always tell what they're like because I didn't show this earlier, but here's season 3 of Xenia Warrior Princess. Now take a look at this beast right here. So this thing is huge for 22 episodes. 22 episodes. I mean, look how big it is. I mean, it's almost as big as a box set. Um, I could probably get 3 of these to the size of my Friday the 13th. This thing's enormous and it's heavy. But look at this beast. Now, this is the early days of DVDs. This is before Blu-ray, of course. And so back then they thought this is what everybody wanted. I think part of it was this the reason why they were so big like this because it was almost like VHS, a little bit smaller than VHS, but the same size. I mean, as far as the width goes, this is about the size of most VHSs at the time. See, Max says, I have a lot from the old days. Dawn of the Dead, Last House on the Left, Nightmare City, to name a few. He's in Ireland, and so I had the UK branch didn't have. Now, see, that's dedication. That's a collector right there. That's a collector. Um, yeah, I found mine all by the hunt. Um, if I saw it on the shelf, if I saw it on the shelf, I picked it up. Except for Hercules. Um, Hercules was probably this is probably one of the first 10 things I ever bought as far as film wise. I bought Starship Troopers on VHS, but that got eaten up. So my store started carrying where I worked at. They started carrying movies and TV series, and one was the Hercules one, and they were only selling them for $12.99. So I bought it. This is like one of the very first things I ever bought as far as movie wise. Uh, so let's see, and Anchor Bay put out 3 seasons of Titus. That's the comedy, right? The comedy series. I remember that one. They put out a lot of stuff. And one of the questions I definitely want to ask Brian and Thomas when they get here. I'm very curious about this. I know that the library at Anchor of Anchor Bay is owned by Lionsgate. A lot of it's owned by Lionsgate still, and others by other companies and whatnot. And then you know what? We're going to be able to ask those questions right here.
Hi.
Greetings, greetings. How are you, Tom? Is
I'm
it
doing
Tom
all
or
right.
Thomas?
How are you?
Good. Do you like to go by Tom or Thomas?
Tom is cool. That's fine.
Okay.
You know,
I'm glad.
my,
I'm
my
glad you're
friends from
here.
high school know me as Tommy, and Brian is one of those friends from high school. So I get Tommy a lot, casually, and most people that I meet call me Tom. Thomas was, the kind of the college name that I went by.
Okay.
So different
Now
phase.
you're the one. I think you're the one that's based in Michigan, right?
No, Brian is the one based in Michigan. I'm in Los Angeles right now.
Well, welcome to the show. We have a ton of questions for you. Let me tell you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this too. I really do
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it and taking an interest in what we're doing, and happy to be here. I'm going to try to turn down these lights a little bit. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Come on, Patrick.
Hey,
Yeah.
Brian, how are you?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Show. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
And
having us.
we're ready for Bear.
All right.
Now, Joel pinged me earlier today and said, so do you have questions for these guys? Can they see some preset questions? I'm going like, well, we generally don't do that because we like to keep the conversation flowing. And believe me, I have enough questions to keep you guys answering me from now till the end of the week.
Should we be worried, Patrick? Should we be worried?
We're very excited.
All right, that's good. Where are you based out of?
I'm actually based in Michigan.
Where you at?
Yeah, Canton.
Oh, kidding. Yeah, I'm in Rochester Hills, man. That's good.
Are you still
cool.
Are you still Troy?
No, I'm in Rochester.
Rochester. Oh man, I heard about what happened over there. Really sad.
It is. Actually, I have a relative. My brother-in-law's cousin is actually one of the victims. Actually, so not to go on this other morbid tangent while we're on the call right now, but they're alive. They're okay. It's very traumatizing, but it's it's okay. He's gonna be okay.
Our prayers and thoughts, and sincerely, our thoughts and prayers are with you. I mean, I've gone through gun violence myself. I understand that it's never easy. I just hope they're okay.
Should be all right.
So, why Anchor Bay? Why bring Anchor Bay back?
Good question. Is that one of the 8, or is this the intro question?
I tell you, we come in throwing heat. We We don't no lollipops here.
Yeah, no, I got you. Why bring Anchor Bay back? Do you mind if I start with this one, Brian, and you could?
It's all you, bud.
So I worked for the original Anchor Bay back in the day. That was how I got my start in this business. And I am not even remotely exaggerating when I say that I got started in this business changing water coolers and cleaning out the fridge in the break room and things like that. And eventually through the good people at Anchor Bay, who are many of whom are still my very close friends and associates years later, I worked my way up and wound up kind of having a role that was a little bit of acquisitions marketing hybrid, so to speak. And then I transitioned years later to their post-production team, and that's what brought me out to Los Angeles. So I worked a lot on the post-production side, mastering the films, the DVDs, so forth and so on. But the brand has always been very close to me, just in general. I mean, I cannot tell you, it seems like such hyperbole and blowing smoke, but like it really was a special place to work and a special place to cut your teeth. And the fact that I had that introduction to the entertainment business behind a car dealership in Michigan, of all places, it was, I was living this like kind of weird Hollywood thing, but not in LA. And it was just, I'm very, very grateful for that. So I've always been very, loyal and loving to the brand and the people that built it. And when Brian and I saw an opportunity to acquire the name, so to speak, we decided to jump on it. And we've long been looking to come up with a distribution arm to support our production and finance efforts through Umbrelic. And Anchor Bay seemed like a very natural fit. And that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, you started Umbrelic in 2018, right?
We did.
Yes.
Now, what was the reasoning behind that? Had you been working with other people who said that they were lacking in services, or good companies that were, upfront with filmmakers? What was the reasoning and the thought behind forming Umbrelic?
Do you want me to take this one, or would you like to take this one, Tom?
Why don't I start and then you can jump in?
Sure.
I don't want to hog the microphone.
Go for it, man. It's all right.
Very, very long story short, my background in post-production was largely the delivery of materials. And the way a lot of these things work is people don't get paid until the materials are delivered correctly. And, there's often a lot of finesse. And through that, we kind of got a, behind the scenes education on film finance and how some of these deals were done. And Brian, who I've known since high school, our time in high school together in Troy, and we've been friends all this time, still. and we saw a little bit of an opportunity to bring people that aren't necessarily familiar with entertainment deals, but into it in a very ethical way that can get finance to people in the country, or get people in the country to finance pictures that haven't traditionally done that. Brian?
It's a fairly accurate thing. So your question, Patrick, is why did we found it? Or what values did we found it on?
What was it behind? I mean, like I as far as distributing goes, was it always intended to be a distributing? Were you going to distribute through Umbrelic, and then you decided you wanted another outlet for it?
So I'll start. I'll break that question down. So building on what Tom said. So Tom's background's in post production. He's modest. He's delivered over 2,000 movies. Some bigger titles you never heard. He's very modest about it. So that skill set's usually not one that's explored or often talked about in film schools or among film. They usually just talk about raising money or making movies, but not how the movie actually gets to market. So that's what he's an expert in. My background's in sales. We had known each other since high school. I mean, I helped Tom with his first movie he did. When was Falling Away? We were 18 years old in 1997. We were 17, 18.
Yep.
So we've been doing indie films for a long time, stuff that he produced. Speaking for myself, my own background, I didn't ask this, but I guess I'll throw this in there. I was in sales. I did some volunteer work at Backpack, and then I was in Chicago working in sales. Tom got his first movie casted while he's working at Anchor Bay, actually. It was with, he got the time off to make it in Detroit. It was called Nevermore with Judd Nelson and Vincent Spano. And then I came back and I quit my job in Chicago to come back and help him produce it with our other friend. And I loved it. I fell in love with the production. Everything, I was the only one who didn't go to film school, but I was in charge of a lot of the production and doing the business side of things, which I really loved. And we've been doing off and on other indie productions that he's done. And we wanted to actually get into film financing and start to do larger projects. And that's when we decided, said, you know what? We're just going to form this company. And I had a small pool of investors that we wanted to initiate into the film business that were kind of curious about it. And not to get too technical about it, I was an art and English major. I'm not a business. I had to learn business on the job. So I'll make this as simple as possible. A lot of people, when they're pitched movies or people want to make movies, it's what's called an equity play. Like, give me the money, we'll go make the movie, and then we'll all make a ton of dough. Although it doesn't usually happen that way. So what Tom was able to do as a post guy was bring deals that were already, like, for example, movies that were finished but needed completion funds, people who wanted to finance sales agreements or finance tax credits with established producers. And we were able to introduce our pool here in Michigan and get them involved in films that way. And that's how Umbrelic was born. And then that pool grew, and I think we've done about 12 to 14 films on that. And part of what we want to do too is build a values-based business. So one of the things we experience, and this is not the industry, I don't people want to blame the industry, but it's not just certain companies. We want to make sure we're a transparent company with people. Like, our investors, we're very transparent with them about the deals that we do. And we got into a post-production side. Tom was the number 2 guy at his post house in LA. They got bought by Deluxe last year. So we spun out a second company. And we now service a lot of his former clients came with us, and we want to get into distribution. We've always talked about distribution. It's a great way to learn the business. And with the way the market went with the distributors, now is a good time to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I'll just tell them, we were out, I think we were drinking at the bar at an industry event with some friends, and Tom was like, you know what? We should just buy Anchor Bay. I'm like, I don't know if we can do that, man. He's like, well, let's check and see. And then we checked with our trademark attorney. Lionsgate had not renewed the trademark, so we just said, fine, we're going to take it. So then we did. Completely unaffiliated with the old company. It's a brand new company. It's just the name. We don't own any of the catalog. I want to be very clear on this podcast. And
I was going to ask about that, if you don't mind me asking. I was wondering about that. you bought the name, and I was just wondering if if it had been now did you have to negotiate Lionsgate at all on any level for the name? I mean, was there
Nope.
negotiations between you and no, just completely.
They hadn't
So
renewed it, so yeah, they just let it go. So I'm being very honest. Like, I mean, you can look this up; it's a matter of record. So, I mean, Tom, do you want to elaborate on this, or
No, I mean,
prevent me from saying anything
that's really
foolish?
it. We through our very skilled trademark and copyright attorney who we've worked with.
Shout out to
on
Becky.
Things, yeah. Shout out to Becky, who's also Michigan based, but she is, both wholesome and a shark in her own right. But we really got a crash course in how trademarks and logos and all these things are actually allocated and done. And the fact that it had been expired for X amount of time allowed us to come in there and snag it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but here's the thing. To be clear, though, it's a new company. It's just the name. It's not the catalog stuff. I don't want. And one of the things that we want to make a distinction on is that what we're trying to do is honor the brand of the old Anchor Bay, the cult classics, the horror stuff before the acquisitions. And on a side note, Tom got his job there. I don't tell the whole story, but there you go. Actually, did you author that one, Tom?
What, that story?
Wait, is that from Anchor Bay? The Hercules?
yeah, this is Anchor Bay. This is
yeah. Did you author that one? Hercules, the Kevin Sorbo series?
No, Hercules, I would have still been at the company. So prior to DVD authoring at that point. So that was something that I remember. Yeah, we had a bin full of them. Hang on, I'll get you right. I got my Xena bobblehead still from back in the day.
Ahoy, matey.
Yeah, we got black sails. I got a couple black sails floating around here still. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
My question is this: was there any thought at all of asking Lionsgate or negotiating with them to create just a small? I mean, instead of just starting ice cold, you got a brand new building, but there's nothing in it, or a car with no engine in it. Did you ever think about just getting like 30 or 40 titles just to jumpstart it?
No, and I'll feel this one time. If I may, you can build on this one.
Sure. Yeah.
We're entrepreneurs, Patrick. So we're here for to build. We want to build a new company. That's all it is. Now, here's the thing: we're not above. That being said, though, it's time to elaborate more on this. We're not above building the catalog. If people want to come to us and talk to us about potentially acquiring catalogs and building the catalog that way, that's absolutely fine. Go ahead, Tom.
The other thing too that a lot of people don't realize are the Anchor Bay deals were often 7 years were kind of the minimum. 15 years probably would have been the max. So there's no catalog to really buy from Lionsgate anymore. Like, most of these deals have lapsed and they're either back to the rights holders or the producers, or they're out in the ether. So even if we went to Lionsgate and said, we want to acquire Evil Dead and release it for the 100th time, they don't own it. And I think that part of it is, as much as we're physical media junkies and we want to do restorations, classic titles, and all that stuff, we're also kind of looking at this as kind of like being a new era for Anchor Bay and what those classic titles might look like 20 years from now. So we're trying to find those. But I also, I don't really have any interest in, I think I was at Anchor Bay and my career there spanned about 5 years. And then on the post side of things, I probably worked with them for another 10. But the number of times we did Halloween and Evil Dead, I couldn't even tell you how many. I mean, so many. I don't really have interest in doing those again unless we had something really valuable to contribute that hadn't been contributed on disc in the past.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that too. So as far as you're bringing back Anchor Bay, are you guys going to try to make it a physical media entity like it once before? Is this like a step forward? Because I commented before you got here, it seems like physical media is receding. I just heard that Disney's no longer going to be doing 4K releases. Redbox is hanging on by its tippy toes. As far as physical media goes, do you see this more as a way of coming back and trying to reestablish the physical media? I mean, because Anchor Bay used to be everywhere. I mean, it's not. I didn't really ever consider it a boutique label. Like I've heard some people comment about that, but Anchor Bay was sold in every brick and mortar store that ever sold movies. it was a viable entity. I mean, you could go there if you wanted a Hercules, you could go to any store and pick it up. I mean, it was no problem. Is that something that you want to try to bring Anchor Bay back to get a foothold again in stores, or is that just gone?
Good question. And when you say it was everywhere, what's interesting is I think a lot of the fans like us like the the TV on DVD releases and the horror films and things like that. But I want to tell you, what really kept the train going, no pun intended, Thomas the Tank Engine and home fitness was as big as anything under Anchor Bay while I was there. And home fitness has obviously changed a lot with subscription models and Peloton and things like that. But they were the name in home fitness DVDs at the time, and they sold a lot of them. So it was kind of interesting. But to answer your question, yes and yes. I mean, we do have a big focus on streaming as well for some of our new titles, but we don't view these things as being exclusive to one or the other. Like, I think that a physical release can support the streaming and vice versa. I think that people, there might only be 50,000 physical media collectors left in the US, but they buy most things that are released on physical media. So there is a market for it. And we're trying to do our best to help that market and support the market and support the fans. But I want to look at things. We want to look at things on why they were released, when they were released, what went right on streaming, and then a year from now do a different edition and get a bolster on streaming as well. So I think these things can work hand in hand in a way that I don't think has been very well explored in the streaming era, so to speak.
So your research says there's like 50,000 physical media collectors?
No, I think he was.
I was going to say, I was going to say millions. I was going to say, I know millions
I don't know.
for my own self.
Where'd you get that number from, man? Is that true? I didn't hear that number, Tom.
Did I take a bite of the apple and fall asleep?
Probably 30,000. I don't think it's that a crazy of a number in the U.S. I mean, like 30,000.
You talk about it. I mean, it's a 400. Was it how many people use? 400 million people? 500 million people?
Right,
so it's like 1%. That's still. I mean, I guess it's. Here's actually. I'm going to answer your question a different way. Billion one time said Patrick. So we're specializing the movies we're focusing on, the ones that we want to watch. So cult classics and horror films that may not have a home that we think are really unique and cool. And from our partnerships with the physical media side, which we are actually engaging in, which I think is what you asked, those films do perform well. And those are the films that people pay for collectors. So we are bringing that back, but it's because the niche films we're going after kind of fit that market, if that makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, Disney or Redbox closing everything down. I mean, look, you might not buy like the average Disney kid child. They're not going to buy. I mean, they're not going to buy it. There's a Redbox or the average DVD or Blu-ray coming out and a simple action movie or something like that. But maybe Insidious comes out, a cool horror film comes out, something that's more like a collectible item, something we can actually do a unique box for. I mean, what was the box Joel was showing us the other day for the giveaway? Was it
We've done a few. I mean, I just
or the Evil Dead box. Like, it was cool.
Who was VP of production at Anchor Bay? He just sent me a treasure trove of stuff, which is nice. We're all kind of
look at that. That's
like the Evil Dead, and there's we just have all these like cool.
You're not going to get that on the and forgive me for saying this. I don't mean just like on the latest Frank Grillo action movie. You know what I'm saying? It's not. So it's not like it's going to be something very special. So and that's what we're trying to focus on Anchor Bay specifically. No disrespect to Frank Grillo, actually, like Frank Grillo.
The tins and things like that. Now, just to be honest with you, Patrick, and maybe this is revealing too much of our business strategy off the get. I don't see us doing these big tins and releases right out of the gate because we want to know what the demand for the product is, and we want to figure out like what our hits are and what the public is responding to. I certainly love to give every film the royal treatment, and we're certainly doing that in what we're putting out both on disc and on streaming. But in terms of like the packaging, I want to make sure that we have our beat, and I think we have a lot of future classics lined up, but I want to make sure that the audiences feel the same way.
Yeah, I like the idea I like the idea you're coming in new and you're coming in hot with new movies. A lot of the things I'll tell you something I'm tired of. I'm with you, man. seeing the same old, you know, over and over and over. All these boutique labels come out there, they reissue the same movie like dozens of times when the prices are stupidly high. I
Yeah.
understand, you know, I just I like the idea of you coming in, and you're going to have to build up your library. We understand that now. Now that there's no catalog, now that there's no library, so everything you do, you know, you're doing it slow, you're doing it right, and you're going to be doing it with movies that no one's ever heard of yet. You know, you got your first two films that you're releasing to the public. You're doing a documentary about Dinner with Leatherface, and then you're doing a movie, Abrupto. Now that's your first two movies that you're releasing to us now. Um, how fast will you be release date? I mean, do you feel any, you know, do you have a timetable as far as releases go, and how many of them will be released at that particular time in order to gain market share?
Well, Abruptio, the release date's already been announced. So that is, I also have to check my books, but it's the end of August, I believe. I will check where that's at. As far as Leatherface, it depends on how fast Julia over here actually cuts the thing.
Go, Julie, go.
But she's editing the doc next to me at this point. So no, but Leatherface definitely has to come out this year, given the anniversary. So that's queued up. Crust is another one that is queued up as well for release this year. So these things are actually coming together. So we're, you know, and then we have a couple other deals in the works that the ink's not quite dry yet on paper, but it's getting there. So we have a sci-fi film
and Daddy
release. Yeah, that's also one of ours as well. And these are all, you know, the very short answer, our rollout is going to start at the end of August. I think Brian and I both want to be very conscientious about not necessarily acquiring too much, but we want to be able to pay attention to every title that we're releasing. And if we're putting out 20 in the marketplace in 1 month, that doesn't do anybody any favors. It doesn't do us any favors. It doesn't do the filmmakers any favors. We're not trying to dilute the brand and dilute the marketplace. So, you know, we've had a couple of titles that have come up too that we liked, and we said, yeah, we're interested in them, but it might have to wait until Q1 of 2025 because we want to make sure we give it the attention it deserves. Like, I don't want to just shove it out there when I have 3 other movies that month that we're trying to market and bolster interest in.
Well, and also we're just to build on that also. So we're also doing theatrical release on these things too as part of our plans. We're doing theatrical streaming and then also the physical release. And we're trying to time this also. So if a movie's coming out for theatrical, we have the time when the streaming window is going to come after that, and then do the same for the following films on slate to keep everything in line and it makes regard enough marketing attention for each one to build on what Tom said. Anyway, sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
Well, with Umbrelic, you have a lot of releases going on there. You have a lot of different projects, like the Badger game. You have, you know, Amy and Peter are getting divorced. I'm looking at the website, seeing these movies here right now. Now, will these be totally separate from Anchor Bay, or will Anchor Bay also be handling the distribution of these movies for you for Umbrella?
So, if I may, Tom, these are so we're keeping our arms separate for now. For now we are actually we just wrapped, and we didn't say this. We actually just wrapped another film in Kansas City called Possession of Gladstone Manor, which actually has Barbara Crampton, Lynn Shay, Jesse Metcalf. It's a pretty rad film. And then we have another one coming out it's in post production right now called Stay at Home, with a bunch of former Nickelodeon teen actors and also Jenna Davis from Megan. And so it's an end and Lila Pay. It's very good. It's very good. So to answer your question right now, yes, we're keeping them separate as a production arm versus a distribution arm. It doesn't mean that in the future there won't be any cross connection between our films. Yeah, I mean, in order that they fit the Anchor Bay brand, and I mean, because some of these do actually fit the Anchor Bay brand, we just did them in different partnerships through Umbrelic. That being said, though, it doesn't mean Anchor Bay may still actually retain, I mean, I'll throw this out there, physical media rights for any of our films that actually fit the Anchor Bay brand that we're going for in terms of genre films, feature cult classics, and the like. I don't know, Tom, you...
No, well said, Brian. No, I think that's very accurate. I mean, I think that, you know, ideally in the future, I keep saying I, sorry, Brian, we are aligned. Okay. I keep saying I, we would love Anchor Bay to help get projects made. You know, in the sense that if we are coming in to finance a movie, we know based on our Anchor Bay numbers that we can do X number of units and X number of streaming dollars. Therefore, we'll come in and almost provide our own minimum guarantee up front that we could finance. And I think that is in our long-term plans. At this point, to Brian's point too, like, I mean, I don't think we're major players in the business, but I would like to think that most of the people who've worked with us through Umbrelic have nothing but positive things to say about the guys at Umbrelic. You know, and we have
hopefully,
you know,
it is our hope.
Yeah, we built what I believe is a very respected brand, at least in the entertainment community, in a very short period of time. So I also don't want to cannibalize the Umbrelic brand through Anchor Bay. And to Brian's point, I think we're kind of looking at things separate. And Anchor Bay to me is like, I'm kind of a kid in a candy store looking at these releases. And, you know, I love watching screeners and indie films that come across our desk and say, like, you know, could we do something with this and put it out there? And Brian and I love taking chances on movies that, you know, other distributors might pass on, you know, and like Abruptio is a good example. You know, Abruptio is an amazing film. And let me put it this way,
right there.
whether
it's awesome, dude. It's a great movie, man.
Whether you love the movie or not, I would find it almost hard to believe anybody would watch it and not walk away and say that it was an amazing piece of filmmaking. They might say it wasn't for me because a puppet horror movie isn't going to be for everybody's appetite, but like, it's still an amazing thing to see. And I can understand why a lot of people didn't touch that movie. We watched it and we said, this is special. You know,
we gotta have it. we gotta have this one.
Shout out to Evan and Gary, the filmmakers, because like, they were one of probably our first acquisition, right, Brian? Were they our first acquisition?
I believe they might have been, Tom. That's correct.
I honestly, other than we're very simpatico in how we view the entertainment landscape and their movie, I can't tell you why they took a chance on us with their, you know, film that was 8 years in the making, but I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
So
I saw that too. I was going to say, that's what I mentioned. I saw that it was labor of love. It took 8 years. The loss of Sid Haig,
Yeah.
you know, and you know, and COVID, of course, and then and he still was able to you know, to finish his film and to bring it to you. My next question would be this: I mean, you're doing sort of both right now. I mean, you're sort of both. You're at the same time you're pitching. Like here, we got new movies. We got movies from Umbrella, like Monstrous and whatnot. And you're bringing are you not pitching them to distributors as well? Or I mean, well, I guess I should say this: they're coming to you. They're making their pitch for you to produce their movie, and then at the same time, you're also, I guess you're doing the same thing, right? I mean, you're doing both sides of the coin, right? You're trying to get and you're distributing other people.
Yes. So let me, if I may, time to clarify this one very quick. So that's correct. But keep in mind with Umbrella, our functions too, we're doing film financing and also production services. So we're actually physically producing as well as EPing some of these. So some of these projects we've actually just, you know, helped get them to the finish line through either financing, other resources, or helping them secure distribution through our sales. So we're not a sales company, we're a company that has to sell. That's what we like to say a lot of times. And securing deals. I mean, some of these projects also we've done like, so using our post-production facilities as a form of in-kind services. So, you know, a project might come to us, let's say they have, you know, they're 2/3 complete, almost to the finish line, they need post-production services. We might come in and finish that as a form of equity in the film and then help them get to the finish line as a form of EP and equity investment. So, but to answer your question, yes. And some of these we are actually production services and some we are actually physically producing. As far as the Anchor Bay side, yeah, it's strictly distribution right now. To bring it back to your question, I think it was like 2 questions ago. At some point, we do actually see the services melding and maybe doing cross projects for each one. So maybe we use Anchor Bay as a distributor for some of them, maybe not. Keep in mind, Anchor Bay also is a very niche target, and we're looking for very specific titles for it. Umbrella, not everything we do with Umbrella actually would fit the niche. So some of them don't fit Anchor Bay's identity. And you brought up Amy and Peter's a good example of this. It's not really an Anchor Bay film, you know what I mean? Like, but some of them are. So yeah. So but yeah, eventually, there's going to be put it this way, it's one big ecosystem, but these are all essentially also startups. You know, we're still getting our footing in some of these and seeing what's what and how we're going to progress too. Does that make sense or answer the question?
No,
I don't know if I
trust me.
strayed too far from your question.
No, I
Okay.
totally get that. My next question would be now you also doing physical media with Anchor Bay. Now, as far as that goes, what are your plans as far as distributing that goes? Would that be in brick and mortar stores, or will it be strictly through website? Will there be video on demand in the future as well? Um, I mean, are you? To me, I like this. For me, I think it'd be awesome if you guys could come out as a mainstream, and is there any chance of that maybe down the road, or is this going to be like a boutique? Are you going to treat this like a boutique label?
Anything's possible, man. So
we have a pretty long reach. We I don't mind saying it. We're partnered with MVD, which has been around for a long time, and they're going to be handling our physical media and replication and things like that. And they're a great team over there. They're easy to look up, but they've been around forever. So we're going to be one of their labels. They also service Arrow and a number of other labels that are kind of in the same area. So if you can kind of picture where those releases are, that's probably where we'll be at too, knock on wood and God willing. But, and then in terms of streaming and placement, we have avenues set up for that as well. Some through MVD, some through other partners. So the movies will all be readily accessible. And the thing that Brian and I think are most proud of, in terms of our distribution rollout strategy is we actually are able to, offer theatrical to a lot of these films. And, it's not going to hit 2,000 screens in 100 markets. But we might be able to get the films placed in 10 markets, 12 markets, and a lot of these filmmakers are going to get the chance to
minimum 3, Tom. Minimum 3.
Yeah, actually get their film out there, these markets on the big screen, and I think that's fantastic. I'm a theatrical person in general. Like, I love going to the movies. And so I do think it always starts with that. So it's kind of weird in a way because we're trailblazing what I think is kind of a new idea. But by the same token, we're kind of going back to an old model, which is we want the theatrical window first for a few weeks. Yeah. Then we want it to go out to physical and streaming. Then we want to see how it does and maybe go to a second window, on some of these broadcast things. I mean, it really is kind of a throwback, but also in some ways, the way distribution's gone, kind of innovative, I think.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, it's overdue, and I know a lot of us here, we talk about, over and over and over, we always hear how the theaters are dying and they're not doing business, they're not doing what they used to do. I think a lot of it has to do with people are just tired of the numbers. They're tired of all the sequels and all the reboots and all the remakes. I mean, nobody wants that anymore, really. I mean, you got a couple of movies that hit. Luckily, they hit big. Otherwise, without them, the market this summer is dead, and it's not just summer. It's going to be carrying on going forward. I think it's really refreshing that you guys are going to take it to the theater. Give it a chance, give it a chance for people to see something new. They're always complaining about it. Well, it's sort of hard to argue that when someone puts it in front of you and then you don't go support it. What's it like to sell a movie? I mean, here you are, you're like you're selling your movie, You're selling, here you got. I'm going to use one of your movies. You got Monstrous. You made it in there, and now you want to get it out. How does it work to where you move one of your movies to like a streaming service? Like, we want to put this movie on your service, and then at the same time, people are coming to you and they're going like, we want you to finish our movie, to help us finish our movie. How does that work?
Those are 3 questions, Patrick. Which
I know. I asked the question.
You only get 8, man. I don't know. You're jamming them all in there, man. You only get 8, bro. So what's the So the question is, you said, what's it feel like to sell a movie, and then also you're saying at the same time where it's okay. So I'm trying to think about how to. Are you saying how to sell a movie, or are you saying because it feels great? There you go. Question answered.
Like, you're distributing your, like a filmmaker is, like, how do you choose your films in order to back them? That's a simpler way of putting it. How do you decide
Okay,
which movies to back?
so let's park on that for a second. You mean as a production film and to finance, or are you talking about as a distributor? In what,
Both.
as Anchor Bay? How do we choose them, or how do we choose them as
Yeah.
Umbrelic? Because
Like,
those are two different.
right. Like, how do you decide if someone comes up there, so I have a movie 2/3 done, and they go to you to finish it out, and you sit there and say, okay, we'll help you finish it out. How do you decide? So because there's a lot of movies out, there's a lot of filmmakers out there with 2/3 of a movie done. How do you decide which movies to back? Because there are a lot of out
Well, if I
there.
may,
Yeah, please.
so Tom, if I may, so I'll give you some general criteria. This is something we had to learn, something that comes out there. So here's the thing, and we used to do this too. When we were starting out, and we were trying to get movies made when we were younger. We solicited a lot of production companies, finance companies, whoever, to try and get movies made on people's behalf. And I would consider it a victory if I got someone to read, my buddy's script for him. So here's the thing I'll tell you. I don't know if anyone's listening to this or this is useful for anybody. Anything we consider has to have some assets attached to it. What that means is it has to have existing cast or marketable director, or either some partial financing or a distribution deal already in place. So if somebody comes to us with just a plain script, like, I got this great idea for a movie, probably not going to look at it right now, because it's too much in the development stage. And not because I'm not saying your script's not great, and I'm not saying it's not the best thing. It can be the greatest thing ever written, but there has to be some criteria to sort things out for us to give more focus on things that are more immediate. It's just a business case. Does that make sense? It's not personal, like you don't like these writers or anything like that. So that's on the production side. Like you mentioned a specific case where, let's say something comes to us 2/3 done, or let's say shot by the way through. So I'll give you an example, and I won't even name the movie, but a movie came to us and it was completely shot out. They had already pre-sold the North American rights to another company. They had a lender in place. They were looking for another way to actually get secure financing from their lender to be able to finish the movie. We helped them secure the resource they needed to get the lender to be able to finance, and then we also came in for post-production on this film as well, they needed another to help finish the movie for them. And that post-production we provided was a form of investment in the film. The reason why we chose to invest in that movie is because it was already sold for at least one territory, and it had a marketable cast, and there was a profit potential for it, if that makes sense. I know that's probably not what people want to hear, and it sounds weird, but like, it's really just a business case for each one. It's not an artistic case. On the Anchor Bay side of things, so as a distributor, it has to have some marketable cast. It may not matter. If we look at a movie, we think it's cool. Like, we're like, all right, we kind of like this movie. Let's do something with it. That might be it. It's just as a distributor, keep in mind. If it's finished work, we'll look at it. Again, if it's anything but a finished work, it has to have an asset. It has to have something going for it besides just pen and paper. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Okay.
To also,
and I don't want to discourage.
Go ahead, Brian. That's a good thing. Don't discourage.
Well, I just want to say, I don't want to discourage people who. I'm not. Okay, my answer is not meant to discourage anybody. Again, we've all been there, man. It's like we are not from the studio system. We had to come up we had to angle our way in, so it's a little bit different. So we get it. But that doesn't mean you can't get an actor attached to it. Get director, even like partial financing will help start a conversation with not only us but people like us, I suppose. Hopefully they're scrupulous like we are and transparent the way we are, so that out there I've dealt with other characters who are not. So, but also, that being said, though, Tom and I have met a lot of great colleagues in this industry, and I'm very grateful for that too. So anyway, go ahead, Tom. I didn't mean to go ahead.
I was just going to say, to kind of echo what Brian's saying, like, I think a lot of times we've seen Brian and Brian actually taught me this, so I'm going to tip my cap to him a little bit, in that it was so hard in the beginning for us to knock on doors, and Brian is very good at kind of keeping us grounded in our roots a little bit, and that, we know what it's like to knock on doors and say, we want to get our movie made, please, sir, and so when people come to us, we try our hardest to respond to everybody. We really do. And if they take that
even if it's a no.
Yeah, and even if it's a no, and if they take that advice or not, I can't control that at that point. But by the same token, I think that there's two different types of producers. There's the people that find the financing and the sales, and then there's people who do packaging. And it's very, very, very rare that you find somebody who does both. And so when somebody comes to us and they just have a script, they're essentially asking us to do a lot of work to develop it and package it. and then to sell it and raise the money. We find that our time is better suited and our skill set is better suited at selling the project and raising the money. So we often try to partner with people who know how to package films. Now, as Brian said, packaging doesn't necessarily have to mean you don't have to have Russell Crowe attached to your movie to ignite the conversation. If you say, like, listen, we're shooting in Romania, we've already been approved for the tax credit, and my uncle's coming in for another $250, and I have this up and coming actor who did whatever, it's something. I mean, that's not nothing, I mean, that's something to start the conversation. And sometimes we can build on that. It's just when it's a dry plot of land and they say build a house, that's where we struggle the hardest,
100%. And also, I mean, it's going to be that too. It could be like, we have, a couple, I have one actor I'm attached, I have a couple small investors, even like, I mean, what was it? Mike Flanagan started his first movie at 70,000 on Kickstarter, not Oculus. What's one he did before Oculus? It was, or like who, what's his name? Who's from Michigan? Did it follows the Myth of the American Sleepover? I forget his name.
I forget his name, but I liked both.
He shot the whole thing in Clawson, man. But they're good. You can make good. You can make good movies. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be anything crazy either. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, we had to learn how to fundraise, and I have a background in sales. I have a 20-year background in sales. So what's funny? It's so easy for you. I'm like, look, sales is. I mean, I've been working at it for a long time. Even when we were doing Tom's first movie, I mentioned Nevermore. This is 2006. I quit my job in Chicago. I took a folder door to door, and we didn't have a lot of money. We had to barter with businesses to get resources to come to the film. I would trade them roles and cameos in the movie to come in. So like. I mean, Chrysler gave us cars. Max Mara at Somerset did the costume. I think Angela brokered that deal. It wasn't even me. Just going door to door to these businesses and just making deals with them. Like, you have to be resourceful if you're gonna do this kind of stuff. So I'm sorry, we're getting on a soapbox and we're going on a tangent away from the question. So I forgive me for that. I'm just trying to.
No, but I do want to build on one thing that you said, Brian, because I do think this is interesting. Is sometimes when we're making a movie. And I'm just going to be brutally honest. Sometimes Brian and I are not on the finance side of things. We're not necessarily as excited about the project because it's something that we're coming in on, but it makes a business case. Anchor Bay is actually giving us an opportunity to get excited about these things. We have. I'm going to give him a shout out to the director of Dinner with Leatherface, Mike Callio, who is almost in a weird way become our unofficial Anchor Bay acquisitions guy because he sends us so much stuff. He's like, I know a guy who made this movie. You should look at this. And, he's really into it. And his first movie was put out through Anchor Bay back in the day. So, he's become a close friend and a big supporter of us. But, it's really interesting. He brought us a movie, and I can't name it yet because the deal's not signed. But in some ways, it even didn't fit the Anchor Bay brand. We were looking at it, and we said, okay, it's got a little bit of an edge here, but it's not really horror. It's not really genre in any way, except it's a weird movie. And I mean weird in a good way. And I think we just kind of said to ourselves, we want to, and I know this sounds very altruistic and like we're kind of like being flowery here, but we want to live in a world where movies like this are being put out. And so we're negotiating the terms on this deal. And to Brian's point, there's no stars in this movie. It's a very small film, but it's well done. It's well executed. It has a heart. It's right there. And we, kind of had to expand what our Anchor Bay offering was a little bit because we saw a movie like this and said, all right, we want to get behind it.
Shout out to Callio, by the way. It's good shout out to Callio.
I know a lot of Anchor Bay fans, a lot of physical media collectors, they're looking at you guys as bring it back, bring it up out, being a boutique label, bringing back I already heard someone mention Phantasm in there. Who was that? I want to get their name. Jojo mentioned that. My thing is like, my question to you is, do you think recycling of, they're looking for you to come back there and bring the old Anchor Bay back, and that means recycling the old titles that already been recycled 100 times. Are you going to stay away from that and just concentrate solely on organically acquired films?
No, hold on. I'm going to answer this one. Let me answer this one. If somebody comes to us with the rights for something and the business case makes sense, hell yes, we're going to take those rights, Pat. May I call you Pat? Yeah, we're going to take those rights.
No. That's so, I mean, sorry, so if there's something that if there's something that makes sense, you'll grab it. I mean, you'll
yes, we
reissue
will. Like, yeah, dude. Like,
Yeah, we would. I think that, as I mentioned earlier on this, we don't have a lot of interest in like re-releasing Halloween unless we really had something new to add to the set. But it's been done so many times. So what are we adding to it? But to Brian's point, maybe somebody presents us something that is new and innovative that can be added to it, whether it's a new special feature or a new whatever.
Or they just say, listen, we want to give you Halloween. You guys want it? Sure, we'll figure something out and make it innovative too. I'm going to throw that out there too. Would you also agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
How do you decide? How would you decide what to redistribute? I mean, to bring it back out and reissue. How would you decide? How do you decide to do that?
As Brian said, it's kind of a mostly a business case, but also in the same breath, it's like, could we do something new with this that hasn't been done? And I do think and this is probably going to answer your question a little bit. I do think, and I've heard from a lot of the fans, and most of them have been very supportive and very enthusiastic of what we're doing. And I'm very appreciative of that. I do think some that are expecting us to, make another cool box for Evil Dead are going to be very disappointed in what we go forward with. And it does seem like that's a minority. It is a vocal minority, but it is a minority nonetheless. And I how do we decide? I don't really know, except that we'll kind of know it when we see it. The handful of catalog titles that we have acquired, which again, I can't talk more about them because they're not announced yet. So, but like, they're not the usual suspects. I guess one of the things that is kind of motivating us too is a lot of people, no disrespect to any of these movies that I consider classics as well and loved working on, but I love Evil Dead. I love Halloween. I love Hellraiser. However, I also want to introduce people to movies that maybe they missed for whatever reason. I think one of my best experiences that I got out of Anchor Bay was they had a very large supply closet. And it was kind of there for employees to use. So it was a giant video store in its own way. And I'd say I never saw this movie, and I would take it home and watch this movie. And I saw so many things that I had never seen before. And yeah, I had seen Dawn of the Dead by the time I started working at Anchor Bay. I had not seen Macon County Line, so that was an interesting movie to me. And I was glad that I got that education. I mean, are we going to be people that introduce a whole new generation of films that have been forgotten? I don't know. I hope so.
That'd be awesome. That'd be great.
But we really have to find the right films that fit that. Because the other thing too is we have been pitched some catalog titles, and I'm like, I don't know if this needs a 4K release. Like, I mean, fun, it's cool. Like, but I don't know if we need it.
Right.
Oh yeah,
I'm totally with you on that. I am. I collect ISC films, and that's my jam right there. And it's like, man, I see everybody talking about all these old recycled stuff, and I'm going like, but at the same time they're going like, there's nothing new, and it's like, man, have you guys gone over there and checked their catalog? There were 1,000 releases of movies I'm guarantee you've never seen before. Why don't you go, explore a little bit more, but then you got the same people sitting over here going like, when are we getting that Evil Dead?
Right.
I don't know. Evil Dead's pretty sweet though, man. I don't know. You guys, I don't talk about it's pretty awesome. I know. But here's the thing though. What we're hoping for, Patrick, is like, look, I want people to be arguing over the Abruptio or Crust box sets in like 5-6 years. You know what I mean? Like, where's that? Hey, did you get this special edition mini puppet that came with this thing? Did you get this? That's we want to start those conversations with new classics. That's our goal. So like, respect but again, to reiterate what I was saying, look, if there's a business case, if it makes sense from a business standpoint and it gets us excited, sure. Like, why not, dude? Of course. Like, Does that make sense?
Yeah. How long when if you do that, if you go back for a reissue, when you will keep on Evil Dead, how long does it take? How long does it take, or what does it take for a company to negotiate the rights? Like you always see all these movies recycling with different boutique labels. What is the average hold time for a movie? Do you hold it for do you hold the
de-
rights
de-
for 3 months, 6 months, a year?
It depends, man. So it could be. I mean, the deals we've typically seen with distributors go anywhere from 7 to 50 times before 7 to 15 years. But there's been times we've negotiated films from people. We're still negotiating them. That it's some dead relative's sister that has like the or somebody's got the rights that, and there's like a loose piece of paper that connects to the chain of title somewhere. So it's like, I mean, some of these don't even have proper legal documentation or copyrights on them. So if I'm being honest with you, Tom, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one.
That's true. And and I'll give another shout out here too to somebody who's been a loyal ally to us throughout the years, but David Gregory over at Severin. I've been in David's office, and his whiteboard is phenomenal. And when I say whiteboard, I mean like he literally has a dry erase board on these movies that he's tracking across continents and ownership, and it might have changed hands here and everything like that. And I have to be honest, I don't know if I have that in me. Brian's got a little bit of that in him because he's got like a little bit of a detective streak, where he likes trying to figure out who he likes doing the cold calls and figuring out who.
I'm a sales guy. I'm a pure salesman, man. I love that shit. I'll do all that.
But again, what intrigues us on these movies and the ones that we try to go after, I don't know if they're the movies that people are necessarily clamoring for right now. I hope that they see them and they say, "Oh, I'm glad you put this one out." That would be great. And we have done that. I mean, we've kicked the tires on. I tried with one movie. I got, and this was an older film. I got nowhere with it because the producer and the director hated each other, and the producer would have rather burned the negative than put it out. That show remained nameless. And then I went after USA, and I don't mind calling this out, but they made a handful of like made-for-TV horror movies in the late '90s and early aughts that I thought were fantastic, and that really stuck with me. And it's interesting, Patrick. Like, it's hard to, you literally talk to the guys that are the producers of this movie. It's 4 people. They produce the movie. I talked to all of them. They're like, I don't know who owns the rights. Like, I mean, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, dude.
It's an Easter egg hunt every time on some of these things.
What have you done to protect yourself from that? I mean, how can going forward you see those mistakes being made. So what have you done to make sure this doesn't happen going forward?
I'm very bureaucratic and meticulous with our paperwork, if that makes sense. So we're very I'll be honest. I go crazy. Having been a salesperson for a long, I've been an independent contractor for sales for a long time. So I've gotten burned a lot of times by not having proper contracts. So learning that early on, I make sure we have contracts, and I bring it. I don't also, this is the other thing too. And Tom had to get used to me doing this, although I think he thinks it's a benefit. I like to blow problems up right away. So I'll bring things up like right away. Like, is this going to be a problem? Are we going to do this? I don't hide anything. And when we do our process, and that transparency and making sure we have our T's crossed and our I's dotted, and make sure we have a paper trail on everything is very important to us. I don't know, Tom, you care to comment on that one?
No, I mean, the only thing I'll say is when, we were struggling filmmakers, and we would get a contract or need to make a contract and be like, okay, well, who's got $500 to pay an attorney for a couple hours? So look over this boilerplate that we found online, and now we have 3 attorneys, and they all specialize in different things, and it's crazy that we have that, but we go through all of the paperwork on these things and make sure, I mean, let me put it this way: in all of our films, I can tell you who the rights holders are at this point.
Yeah, oh yeah.
We're not in a situation where we don't have that. So, and we're very conscientious even on some of the new films that we acquire. Do you have this buttoned up? We go through it a lot. Whether it's music rights or likeness rights or whatever. And sometimes it's easy enough to just make a phone call and help them button it up. And sometimes it's challenging. Sometimes there's
and we won't move forward with it. A lot of times they don't have their stuff together. I'm not gonna get in that mess. Like, no, I mean, if we can help them, great. If not, it's just
correct.
we don't.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah.
But sometimes sometimes it's just a call to the agent, and people just don't do that for whatever reason, or and and sometimes it's very easy to smooth things out and get everything in order. But it's a lot of films, especially when they're shooting them on a wing and a prayer, and it's very run and gun. They weren't thinking about, do they have all of these bases covered legally in perpetuity when they were shooting the person coming out of their house, so it's.
And to point out, we've been guilty of that too. We've had the same growing pains before too. It's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And then later on, it hits you, and you gotta sort through everything and pour over hours and go crazy over it. But that's how you learn. That's how you learn how to do it, though. So anyway, did I answer your question, Patrick?
Yeah.
Was that okay?
As far as how are you going to determine, like, when you do decide on a movie, like, to me, it's like, we're talking about the fans, we heard from the fans, heard from what they want. How are you going to figure it out about what people want? How are you going to determine, like, I mean, it's one thing to sit there and say, I like this movie, I like it a lot. At the same time, if there's like, because a lot of times you see people come out with movies and you sit there and go like, nobody ever asked for that movie. You hear that a lot. Movie will come out there and you go like, no one ever asked for that sequel. Nobody ever asked for that. Like, you don't hear any buzz at all.
You asked good questions on some of these things. So I'm sorry.
I got an answer. I got an answer for this one. You finish. You have an answer for this one.
So how because we get stuff that nobody ever asked for. I mean, you sort of look at like the Fall Guy for example. That movie came out and it had super high hopes, but at the same time, it was mostly on the 2 stars. At the same time, the property itself there's no buzz about it. I mean, no one. I
love Lee Majors, man. So I don't know. Since actually, Tom, you saw it, didn't you? I looked pretty good to me. I don't know.
I actually really enjoyed that movie, but I also think it was kind of, to your point. This is a separate conversation. It doesn't answer your question. I think it was a little mismarketed. They tried to market it on the 2 stars instead of marketing it for what the movie actually was. But Brian, I'd like you to answer Patrick's question because it seems like you have an answer in mind.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's a good answer. I mean, to be honest, you say people are making stuff that people don't want to see, and you also said that we want to see. We're picking movies based on stuff that we want to see. I think you pretty much answers the question. I think a lot of times, and this is just purely my opinion, people feel free to push back on this. When you see stuff in the marketplace that people didn't ask for, it's because executives or a team of business people made a decision to put it out there. When it comes to Anchor Bay, and again, that's a very broad generalization that may or may not be true for every film that we're referring to. I want to make that very clear. This is just a very broad generalization. For Anchor Bay, it's the stuff that we want to see. So, and we're fans. So if we put stuff out that we think is cool, we're going to attract other fans, and that's what we're actually gearing for. We're not gearing for the general public to come out and buy 1 million tickets. It's like, look, dude, we think it's a cool film. I think a lot of you guys that enjoy these types of movies might enjoy it too, and I think that people should see this. You know what I mean? That's kind of where we're at. Does that make sense? I don't know if that answers the question or not, but.
I think it helps that you have in-house marketing. So how are some of the ways you're going to because you're relaunching Anchor Bay? How are some of the ways you're going to market it out there to get it out there? Because now it's a crowded field as far as boutiques go. Not a lot of places to go where you can just put it in the stores and people will see it naturally, organically. Now you have to actually get out there and push these things. Find a place to let people know, hey, we got movies out. How are you going to do that? How are you going to make Anchor Bay stand out even more than it did from the past? I mean, you can't live on the past for too long.
So I guess what I would say is our philosophy is rooted more in longevity. We're not trying to do a smash and grab on a lot of these films or any of the films, really. I think that, and people who've kind of been paying attention to us, they probably have heard this quote from me before, but it really is something that we're trying to live by, which is we want to put out a movie, and if it did well, we want to know what we did and do it again. If it didn't do well, we want to know what we did wrong and do it different. So I don't want to just throw a movie out there on the marketplace and we've got 10 movies on streaming this month. God, I hope one of them sticks. Like, I hope it's the one Jean-Claude Van Damme movie that somebody clicks on Tubi to watch. You know, I don't want that. I mean, ideally, we do have Joelle who helped organize this. Thank you, Joelle, and Joelle's in the chat
Thank
as
you,
well.
Thank you,
Joelle.
Joelle.
Shout out to Joelle.
She's old school
She's
Anchor
awesome.
Bay and did some of their very famous covers, but she's been working with us on the marketing side of things. So we're kind of getting the old school band back together in its own way too. That said, I think that we're really trying to, and this is wishful thinking, but we really want the movies to garner buzz on their own. I really do think that we're acquiring some strong offerings that most people will talk about. This is kind of goes back to your question, and I really hate landing on that like word of mouth, like marketing idea, because it makes it seem like we don't have a plan. But like, it really is letting people know these movies exist, letting them watch them, letting the Anchor Bay brand help bolster these films that might have not otherwise gotten the boost from it, and then let people talk about it. And here's the thing, and I know I keep going back to Abruptio, but like, it's like, it's a very basic pitch. It's like, listen, this is a puppet horror movie with a great collection of voices. And if you want to see the Team America World Police of horror movies, then this movie is for you. And there's going to be a lot of people who say, you know what, I'm not interested in that film. That's okay, though. Even if
I think people are going to come out for it.
Yeah, if you badmouth that movie to 10 people, there's going to be 5 people in that room that's going to say, well, that sounds interesting to me. So we're looking for interesting movies. And I know that that's a really hard thing to quantify, but like when we look at screeners, we often try to look at, is it one thing? And it's such a real basic guiding principle, but like, if it's just this, an action movie, just this, it better be really good. But if it's an
how many
action,
theaters do you
like, maybe we're interested in it. It's like,
by the way, I think Abruptio may also be Sid Haig's last on-screen performance of some kind. Isn't it? Yeah. So,
we want movies that people will find interesting and they'll talk about it. And when they're sitting around talking about these movies, they may even personally say, this was not for me. But the people who are hearing about it say, well, that sounds interesting enough that it might be for me. So, really, I mean, and this is what was interesting, even going back to the old Anchor Bay, we would, and then I'll kick it back to you, Patrick. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but like in general, the guiding principle has to be to find a good movie. And I know that good is very subjective, which is why I try to substitute interesting for good. Like it may not be everybody's cup of tea, but at least it's well executed and at least it's interesting enough that somebody would want to watch this.
We got a couple of comments here in the chat. Mac Chats wants to know a potential. I'm sure you've been hearing a ton from the fans about what they're hoping that you will undertake. We already heard about Phantasm, right? And then Mac Chat says, what about Ralph Bashki?
I would love to do that, man. Fritz the Cat, American Pop, Fire and Ice box set. Throw that together.
I would be there for that. I would be the first in line for that.
That'd be awesome. Wizards in the box. So
you have to have wizards in the box. There's no Bashki without wizards.
No, although go ahead, man. Sorry. Go ahead.
And see, our friend Gizmo says, are you going to be expanding your reach to as far as films go, as far as looking for them? Will you be expanding, international wise, like, or places like cons or Europe or anything else? Are you going to go to different festivals and look for films as well?
Yes.
Yeah. We do and have. We kind of kicked this off at Berlin this year. This sounds like almost like a an American thing to say, but like I think that a lot of non-English language content automatically becomes genre content in America. Like foreign has its own niche a little bit. Now that said, somebody pitched like a foreign rom-com to us, and I got to be honest, I watched like 10 minutes of the screener. Again,
oh, was it the Chinese one? Is it the one? Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, sorry, this is it was well done, man. It was super
really,
well done.
really well done. But we had a hard time justifying how this would work for Anchor Bay. So I totally wish him the best of luck. So we still like really are trying to find things that work with what we want to do with the film. But yeah, of course, foreign language content. Yeah, if it's out there, I'd love that.
How do your peers what's your peers take on you taking on this taking on Anchor Bay relaunch? I mean, what have you heard from
they love it. Yeah. They love it. Super supportive. I mean, put it this way: if there's haters, we haven't seen them yet. So I don't know. Tom, what's your experience been?
No, it's been great. I mean, it was nice, to even reconnect with people like Joel and Mike, and people that I had worked with back in the Anchor Bay days, and to be fair, I don't think Joel and I never really lost contact, but I've lived in LA for a while, and, but she's really been great and supportive through this. And I feel like our colleagues are very excited about what we're doing, and have a lot of belief in it. And I think that's really helping reinforce, I mean, whether we're doing the right thing or not, it still remains to be seen because we haven't released one movie yet under Anchor Bay. But when we do, the jury will decide. But right now, I think people are very supportive of what we're doing.
Yeah, I think the first movie is going to be Gangbusters. It's a great movie. It's a great movie. I think behind the story of the movie being made is also marketing, perfect marketing. That's a labor of love. People can respect that, and I love it too. I've seen people who, they've taken 6 years to get their movie out in front of people, and you just gotta love the spirit behind it.
Yeah.
100%.
Let's see. But film festivals is to trash. Let's see. Let me see this. But film festivals is a trash B film underground film festival. Is that your film festival, Gizmo, in the Netherlands? I'll have to.
It looks like it.
I'll have to.
Film festival in Netherlands. Got it. Okay, we'll make
check it out.
Check it out.
I do have one more question for you guys, because I know that one of you is a new father, so I'm not going to keep you too long. But I do want. There's one thing I want to ask about. You mentioned a name earlier, and I won't repeat it on camera. But Robert, question for me: what are you going to do as far as for customer service if once a movie gets out? How are you going to improve? Do you have any ideas to improve it? Just one of the biggest things, the biggest gripes I hear, short of Criterion, as far as boutique labels go, is just horrible customer service, horrible delivery speed. We see people here on YouTube, or they'll do a buy on March and won't get it until December. What are you going to do is there something that you guys can do to address that to make it run smoother?
Well, may I address this, Tom? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Please. If we have issues that come up from and how we're actually distributing our movies, we welcome the feedback and we'll correct it, and we'll find a systemized way to correct it. That's it. We can't. I mean, we can go through hypothetical problems right now, but I wouldn't know how to address them because we haven't actually had the releases yet. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
That being said, though,
I just see a lot of that, and I'm like, man, that's a big question. I know people really want to know, like, okay, how are you going to help me if I get my order lost? Because every time I try to call some of the other places, all I get is a dial tone, or my stuff comes 6 months later and it's even broken more than it was before. Let me see if there's any last questions I missed. Let's see. Let's see. Ant Review saying do these guys hire a lot of young filmmakers? I don't necessarily think it's hiring. I definitely think that if they make a movie, they bring it to them and then decide whether it's good enough to distribute or not, or to help. Your service that you have, Outpost X, that's got to be a critical arm, especially now, right?
Yeah.
Now, who among you two are you guys editors by, you work, film production, or either only you editors or directors or executive producers?
We've dabbled in everything, let me put it that way, before we found what our path was. One thing that I will say about like the post-production aspect of it is just to be honest with you, like I've tried to be hands off of editorial in general. Just in the sense that I like the editor and director relationship is a very special relationship and it's very specific. Now we have hired editors on projects before. We have one post that we have one of our editors on. But by the same token, my background is in finishing films, so it's like largely color correction, sound mixing, and deliverable. Like those three things, which are so crucial. They're like the last 1% of a movie, but it's such a crucial 1% to getting your movie out there. So that's kind of what Outpost X specializes in.
Yeah, and then you asked what our other backgrounds were. So you asked, so Tom, he's written. I don't speak for you. I guess that's right. He does some screenplays. He's directed before. He has done editing before, and he knows. I don't know technical. Me personally, I'm not technical. The first movie I worked on was the one we did. Came back was Nevermore. I actually essentially was a line producer, not knowing what the actual title was, but I was actually running the set, managing the finances, doing the day-to-day hiring. And then after that, we both PA'd a series of. I mean, I've been in LA 2 years. I was doing PA work for a long time, and then the sales background kind of translated over into EP work. So financing, finance structure, making deals, that kind of thing. You don't want me doing the post production. I'm the wrong guy for that. So that's Tom's gig. If you do it to me, it's gonna come out all looking funny, man. It ain't gonna look right. So,
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
How has I keep asking these questions. I'm trying to wrap them up because I got them all in my head here. What's it? How to sign with Paradigm help you guys?
I mean, it's helped ignite some conversations. Let me put it that way. We I don't know if we've necessarily closed any deals because of that, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen on this title, the next title, whatever going forward. I mean, Brian, would you say that that's fair?
Yeah, and I would say Nick and Babacar agents are awesome. They're great. And I will say this though, being signed by an agency was sort of like a rite of passage. It was one of our goals actually, in terms of next leveling up, and it was kind of cool. It was good. I'll be honest with you, me speaking for myself personally, from a business standpoint, I didn't. It was a good move for. I didn't understand the value of it. I do understand their value. I'm not saying they're not valuable. They are valuable contacts and leads, but it's a different type of value than if you're, let's say, an actor or an artistic person trying to get an agency, because that's more. It's a different kind of impact, I guess. So to compare, I had artist friends who were like, "You made it," and I was like, it's not the same thing that it is for me that it is for you. It's still very valuable and it's a good indicator, but it's not the same impact as it would be for an artist to secure a representation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if they just marketed your Umbrelic out or your production, your post house production. I was wondering if they handled all that publicity for you as your agent.
No, they have, but they've done some one-offs before. They'll bring deals to us. We'll try and so we've done a couple of deals with them in the past. They'll help facilitate organize some deals with us, help us package a movie. We've gone to them for some packaging stuff before. We actually have our own PR arm outside of we have our marketing person, Joelle, and we also have PR people. We also have our own resources within, let's say, like Screen Rant, CBR, Dread Central, and we've actually built a nice network of people, a supportive network of PR and publicity too. So it's good. Shout out to Xavier as well. I'll throw that out there. And by the way, I want to make this most clear. Tom and I are very grateful for the network we have. We're very lucky to have it. Nobody gets to where they are on their own. I mean, we're self-made, yeah, I guess, man. But we didn't. People have helped us. We're really very grateful for the people that are on our side and our team. Bo Alto is another person. He's ex-Anchor Bay that's on there. He's worked with us for a long time. We're with Tom for a long time. You got Julia over there, who's she's critical. Can you hear me? And Joy, Tara, Bridget. I'll throw all the names. Actually, we have a lot of. We actually have a very female-centric team. Actually, if I'm being honest about it. And then Callio's a good ally. Bo, Ryan Hicks. I'll throw him out there too. So we're very blessed to have a lot. Our agency, actually, we have great partners, and we're very blessed to have a great network and support team. So, and our colleagues have been very supportive as well. You asked that earlier, so it's pretty awesome. So
I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited about this. I was excited to talk to you guys tonight. I know this is probably more of a a bolt and nuts discussion more than anything else. I'm sure a lot of collectors are out there. Ask about this, ask about that. But I'm more of a nuts and bolts kind of guy. I just want to see how it works.
you're from Detroit, man. So that we get
right.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I'm Motor City, but I'm originally from California, so I
There you
cover
go.
both. There you go. I want to thank you both for coming out and hanging out with us. If there's anything that we can do here to help you out, I mean, we'd be more than happy to do that. As my interview series, we interviewed a ton of people, all aspects of the business. More than happy to help you guys out. We're excited to see Anchor Bay come back. Um, it's funny. I was when I was putting this together, and all of a sudden I just realized that I have a lot here and a lot of the old stuff, including one of my very first purchases, which was that Hercules season. That was one of the
Fantastic.
very first. That was one of the very first DVDs I ever bought in my collection. It's like in the top 10. So I appreciate that you guys are doing this. I'm excited to see what comes down the future, and yeah, it's gonna be awesome. Stay there for one more second. I want to turn to the chat and thank you guys for coming out today and supporting this. I really do appreciate those who came out today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys. Very appreciate everybody.
Shout out to JoJo for all your help in making this happen. I really appreciate you so much. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock with Ashley Hargroves. And she'll be here tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And hopefully we will see you there. And just stay right where you guys 1 second, guys, into the chat. Thank you so much. And we'll see you soon. Peace. Tomorrow, 8 o'clock.